And welcome to your LSU Football Fix. I'm Preston Guy, staff writer at TigerBait.com. I've got new Wi-Fi set up. So if you hear any stutters, breakups, anything, it's not even Wi-Fi, y'all. It's directly connected to the internet now. I got into a rage fit this weekend listening to the post-game show. Of course, I was a little sick, so I had to miss going to Tiger Stadium and doing our post-game show from the car with Mike. So I heard all the stutters and lags, and I kind of got into a rage and completely redid my internet. So if you hear any stutterings, any disconnects, anything, let me know in the chat. Harass me, troll me, let me know, because we're working to get that better here at the LSU Football Fix. Right off the back, I want to thank Tramonte for making today's show possible. Got a fresh text from Mike Tramonte just before the show today. They have current store pick bourbons are in. They have Blue Newt, Woodford Reserve, Sazerac Rye, and Jefferson's Pritchard Hill. Of course, remember, they are your tailgating and homegating headquarters for the 2022 season. They are actually opening up deer and wild game processing again. So if you're a big hunter, I am not, but if you are, that's one of the best places to go to get your meat cleaned, paws, fresh meat and sausages cut and made in-house daily. Y'all go check them out. Let's hear from them, and we're going to dive into it. I'm going to talk a little bit of LSU Mississippi State win. Got a chance to kind of rewatch some stuff and go over it. Then we'll have Nick Diaz from the Out of My League podcast. We'll bring him on here. We'll talk a little Mississippi State, but I kind of wanted to go and break down the schedule and talk about that. But let's hear from Tramonte's and get right back into it.
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and home gating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
And thank you, Tramonte's, for making our show possible. Very appreciative for all of our sponsors. We'll get to more later. I got Nick. Looks like he's ready a little early. Nick, give me a thumbs up if you want to just come on in and be brought in and talk all the stuff. If you want to hold off, I know I told you 8:20, but if you want to hold off, I can also hold off. So LSU got a big win over Mississippi State. I predicted LSU would lose this weekend. I thought Mississippi State was a good team. It was more about respecting State more so than a lot of people had. I still think Mississippi State is going to be a good, like, 8, 9, 10 win team almost this year. Maybe not 10 now that they lost to LSU, but I mean, we're still talking about an 8 or 9 win team. And I think that they came in and they showed a lot of reasons why. They definitely did that. But they also showed a lot of reasons why this ain't going to be a team competing for a championship. Will Rogers threw the ball 42 times. Of course, LSU had a lot of freshmen stepping up. We had Emory Jones. He did give up a sack, but he showed a bright future. Jaden Daniels looked really sharp. That's one of the things I playfully tagged Nick Diaz on Twitter saying that Jaden, if he's ready to repent for his Jaden Daniels, what did I call it? Blasphemy or slander, because he was all on the Nuss bus, but that's more just teasing on him. Nick, give me a thumbs up if you're ready to come on, man. Can you hear me? He's not giving me the thumbs up. That makes me think he's back there and it's not ready. I don't want to throw him out there and not be ready because he's here early. Let's see. Let's go. I'm on one. All right. Nick is ready. Nick, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? Good to be back.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Just gonna have you on, gonna kind of, shoot the shit a little bit here tonight. Gonna have more of a relax, just chill and talk. LSU got a big win, 31-16 over Mississippi State this weekend. What were your top thoughts coming out of that game?
That ultimately, what I said before the season is that if LSU is going to reach their potential this year, it's going to have to be their offensive line. Now, the defense, I didn't expect the defense to play that great. I was a little bit more bullish on this LSU defense going into this game. I didn't think they would play that well, but the offensive line is my biggest takeaway because I don't think there's really, other than the defense, which maybe that's just my expectations, but it was the offensive line because that was my biggest concern. My biggest concern going into the season and my biggest concern in this game was LSU's O-line. I did predict LSU to win 27-24. Sort of a last-minute deal. But, yeah, that was probably my biggest takeaway. And just I think the conditioning, and this team is still resilient, and just you can see the buy-in to the culture.
Definitely. Are you ready to repent for your Jaden Daniels stuff? He looks pretty good. Not perfect, but good. And I think that he's definitely LSU's best option for now.
Well, here's what I'll say. I did tag Pooh Bear and company saying, look, I'm a man of my word. I said that I thought Nussmeier at some point would be the starter this year, just based on Brian Kelly's history of when it's a younger quarterback and a veteran quarterback, the younger quarterback eventually wins out. That's what I thought. As far as Jaden Daniels is concerned, a lot of the stuff that he's doing is a lot of the stuff that I saw at Arizona State. He has great poise. I never really questioned his leadership. The whole thing about the cleaning out his locker thing, that video that went viral as soon as he announced he was transferring, his teammates cleaning out his locker. I said, look, don't judge somebody based off a 6-second clip that somebody took on Instagram or whatever.
Right, exactly.
So I don't really care. Plus, that program's a mess, so you never know whose side is right and wrong. But I thought Jaden Daniels always had good body language from watching him play at Arizona State. Leadership, athleticism, obviously. Throws a great deep ball.
Well, I'm going to just tell you right off the bat, talking to him, like, being in the post-game press conferences and stuff, he's a likable guy. I mean, he's big on accountability, even things that are clearly not his fault. He's more than willing to come forward and take the blame for them. I think character-wise, he's been great. And I think that they've needed someone to be that solid present force. The criticism, of course, on him comes – a lot of times there's open receivers he's missing. But it's funny. I saw a play where he had a wide open guy in the flats he missed, but then he takes it and scrambles for a first down. So that elite athleticism kind of bails him out a lot of times.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say. Well, I was definitely wrong about, Nuss. I thought Nuss would be further along. Apparently, Mike had been saying that, this whole quarterback controversy was not really a controversy. It was just sort of a facade, which I would have liked to know that before I, punched my ticket to the Nuss bus. But what I will say is that I'm not wrong about necessarily my full evaluation of Jaden Daniels because he's still not a great pocket passer. However, I will say that every player has his weaknesses. Every player has a weakness. It's the coach's job to put that player in a better position to succeed. And while Denbrock is doing that sometimes, he's not doing that all the time. This is Jaden Daniels' 32nd start in college. I'm not saying that he can't improve or tighten some things up during this season, but he kind of is what he is at this point. And Denbrock has got to stop calling these 5-step dropbacks and calling these pocket passer pro style plays for Jaden Daniels when he is a spread option quarterback. And guess what? He's a damn good spread option quarterback.
He is. I agree. And I think they're going to adjust to that more throughout the season. One thing I'll say about this coaching staff is first off, I think all of Tiger Nation is united on one thing for the first time since Joe Burrow led us to a championship. And that is the Matt House hire looks really good so far. I mean, that defense looks incredibly sharp. I love the twists and stunts. They seem to have this very good bend don't break. I'm excited to see them take up some upper echelon competition. We know Mississippi State is one of the best passing offenses in the country, but admittedly, they are a bit of a one-trick pony. But outside of that, what I've seen, this coaching staff seems to see flaws and make adjustments. Now, special teams, we're not seeing the same issues, but we are seeing some special teams issues still. Offensive line has been reworked quite a bit. Do you kind of agree with my assessment that the coaching staff is seeing issues and adjusting?
Oh, yeah, that's why ultimately at the last second I picked LSU with my fingers crossed. Because I sort of came to this, revelation that, under Ed Ogeron, when Ogeron had things going well with Aranda and Greg McMahon and Ensminger, I remember he had Jonathan Giles, poor guy, we're still picking on him, but Jonathan Giles, he had him back at punt returner the entire season. And he had Greg McMahon, who's a great special teams coach. And he just couldn't do it. And it ultimately, he fumbled in the A&M game, the 7 overtime game.
Yeah.
That probably cost LSU the
very
game.
Costly.
Back at it. And it's like, dude, you saw this coming all year long. You didn't make adjustments. Well, Brian Kelly, he makes that adjustment after 1 week. 1 week. You don't like where one corner is, so you move the you don't like where one safety is with Jay Ward. You want to move him to nickel. He sees that after 1 week.
What a beast, by the way. Jay Ward, man.
Yeah, Jay Ward had the game of his life. But that's what I ultimately came to this epiphany of. He just doesn't do things because that's the way we've always done them. Right. And that's one of the things that Notre Dame beat writers have said is that he is the most adaptable coach they've ever seen. He's a very forward-thinking, progressive guy, which is not necessarily his.
Well, some Notre Dame beat writers. Others assume he's just the worst coach ever. And
but I talked to one who's not, a Notre Dame homer who now covers Florida State, and he was like, "No, he's a very adaptable coach." And so that's very refreshing to have. He's a very
and LSU's had some pretty. Ogeron was overreactive. I thought overreactive to the point of throwing Miles Brennan into the flames as a true freshman while Danny Etling was out there doing his thing. And of course that led to a loss against Troy. But then Les Mothers was just this completely stubborn coach. Now I will tell you this, Coach Polian, a lot of people are getting on him because it hadn't been a great start. Of course, we saw Emory Jones having to make freak of nature open field tackles because the coverage breakdown. And we saw Clayton, the walk-on returner, field a very poor decision on that punt. You can't convince me that nobody has told him when you see a punt like that with coverage that tight, don't field it. Peter, get out of there. That's like high school level coaching right there. I think that's just a player making a bit of a boneheaded play, but we'll see if he straightens it out. Special teams seems problematic. Let's get some questions. Me and Nick will kind of tackle them together. Legacy Dom. He says that's his nephew. Please be respectful. I try to always be respectful. I'm not going to back away from criticism of a player, but especially when it comes to amateur players, like non-professional, non-NFL players, I've never taken true, real hard shots on them. It's kind of my brand.
No. And that's another thing I've had to tell people. I have nothing against Jaden Daniels. I think he's a good dude. I'm just telling you, if I see him miss a throw, I have to say that, hey, you missed the throw.
You can't just sit there and lie to people about their performance. He says last year Jaden lost both his grandparents 3 weeks apart, and that's why there was a drop in his game with the 10 interceptions. The year before was top of his game with 37 touchdowns, 3 tip balls. I don't know if it was 37 touchdowns, but it was a lot. The year before was COVID year.
He was 17 and 2.
17, which is a great stat line, no doubt. And it's a stat line, quite frankly, he's on trajectory to match at LSU because he's got 6 touchdowns, no interceptions so far. Let's see here. Jaden and staff are doing a fine job considering the situation. One thing about Jaden, he's a fighter, and that fighting spirit, especially for quarterback, is contagious. I agree. Dude's a fighter. You see the cut on his eye, and he pushes through against Florida State, which, by the way, Florida State's game against Louisville. You know, did you notice Louisville was backed up in the same exact position where they needed a long touchdown drive at the very end of that game to win it, and they couldn't do it?
Yeah.
Well,
Louisville's definitely not as good as LSU for sure. They don't have as good a quarterback as Jaden Daniels, but although they do have a very athletic quarterback. But yeah,
I thought he was a stud, but yeah, he's not quite a great passer, but yeah, he's an athlete, no doubt.
Yeah, no, he's for sure. He's a good player. But what I will say this about Jaden Daniels' toughness. I love the toughness. I love everything about Jaden Daniels. He's just not a pocket passer. He's just not a great reader of the field. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. He just isn't. But he's great at a lot of things. One thing I will say though about his toughness, and this kind of goes into the rest of the team and the play calling, he can't keep on getting hit like he's been getting hit the rest of the season. Like, he's got a cut eye,
Yeah, he does. I agree.
It really wasn't that big of a deal when you look at it. Players get cut all the time. That's, stuff you see in high school. But then he's coming up and he's kind of limping on his left leg. Yep. It seemed like that hit that we've all taken when we played football at any level. You get like your hip crush kind of under a pile. And
you got to protect him better too. It's not 100% on him.
No.
But yeah, it's like by the way the offense is designed, he's going to take some hits at this point.
Well, but see, that's what I'm saying is that the offensive line has to start playing better and having more designed runs for the running backs for this offense to really go forward. Because, dude, it's week 3 against Mississippi State's defense. You ain't seen nothing yet. Like,
right?
He can't. In other words, I'm defending Jaden Daniels in the sense that we can't keep on. Everyone talks about how great he is with a runner scrambling outside of plays. That's awesome. That's not sustainable. That is not sustainable. And he's doing it because he has to. Sometimes he's doing it because he misses a throw. But the offensive line has to do better in designed run plays for the running backs, 4 or 5 yards a pop. And when they do that, you've seen in the second half against Florida State and the second half against Mississippi State, the offense starts really humming along. Not so much tempo.
I'm going to tell you, like, he does pass the ball downfield. Like, he does get the ball to his receivers a bit. Yes, okay. It's like 1 in about every 4 or 5 or 6 throws. He's a little off accuracy-wise, and about 1, maybe that same amount where he'll miss an open receiver. But again, he makes up with that on most of his throws being good. Of course, he's been very accurate this year, completing more than 70% of his passes, including, let's see, this weekend, he completed 22 of 37. So it's not like he's been bad passing the ball. It's just there's things to be critiqued about it. Let's see here. Golden Boot. Here's Mr. Pooh Bear in here who loves to give you a hard time. Rob Boudreaux says hi to him. He says he loved your buy or sell last week.
I do at the end of after every game for LSU and the Saints, I do a segment called buy, sell, or hold. Or basically, I break down every position and every coordinator and the head coach and say, should you buy stock, sell stock, or hold your stock in that player or that coach or that position group based on last week's performance.
Yeah, right. Well, he apparently liked it, so keep that up. Quick question: best player on LSU's offense?
Best player. Well, I mean,
this one is so easy for me. I'm not even.
I mean, if you could say as far as performance-wise, you could say Jaden Daniels and probably Malik Neighbors. But as far as best, but he's not necessarily they're getting him the ball as much as they need to, is still Kayshon Boutte. Kayshon Boutte's a top 10 talent.
Well, and Kayshon Boutte needs to perform a bit better on his own right. I mean, he's had some performance struggles. Keep in mind, LSU's played 2 major games, and in the first one, he dropped 2 touchdowns in a 1-score game. So I'm not even going to throw Kayshon Boutte in that conversation until he turns his play up. The best actual player on the field for me is Jaden Daniels. It's not very close. That's why it's like, yeah, you could critique some things he's doing out there. Any quarterback you can, but
production and best, and I will say this about that drop, one of those dropped touchdown passes. First off, the second, I will push back, and we may agree to disagree on this one. That one touchdown, back of the end zone, the first drive against Florida State. That was a late throw that was slightly underthrown. Now, does Kayshon Boutte is, top 10 pick? Does he need to go get that? Yeah, but again, when you're a wide receiver, you can't.
And it was contested, in all fairness. That's not one that I really. Okay, if you're a first round draft pick receiver, you're kind of the expectation is that you're coming down with it, but at the same time, it's a tough catch. The second one, I could have caught that second one, my guy.
Well, but that second one wasn't supposed to be thrown because Jordan Rogers of the SEC Network, he was breaking down film study, and I think he was talking to T-Bob, and he said Jaden Daniels was not supposed to throw that pass. That was a decoy route or whatever on I forget what it was, but I heard the interview, and Jordan Rogers is like, yeah, you're not supposed to throw that pass. That's why Kayshon wasn't looking. So in some ways, after week one, I was like, okay, what is Kayshon's problem? But hearing more and more people who study film and break down film of LSU who are not LSU people, I'm sort of starting to show a little more sympathy towards Kayshon, why he's getting so frustrated.
Mm-hmm. No, and I definitely get it. And the offense definitely is different. It looks different. But, hey, man. We'll see. Well, you got to go down and win some football games. We're definitely a little ahead ourselves to truly judge the squad quite yet. Speaking of getting ahead of ourselves, we're gonna break down this 2023 schedule that came out today.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm really excited about because look, guys. I mean, look, I'm not even gonna waste your time today. LSU's gonna dominate New Mexico. And there's really no fun in breaking that down. Go out to Tiger Stadium, take your kids if you've never been. It'll be a fun atmosphere. And then on the week after, LSU plays Auburn. So LSU should be 4-1 going into Tennessee. So that'll be fun to have the program looking in the right direction at that point. But before I dive in to the schedule, I'm going to thank my sponsor, Tramonte's. Remember, y'all, I mentioned that they have currently their bourbon staff picks in selection right now are Blue Note, Woodford Reserve, Sazerac Rye, and Jefferson Pritchard Hill. Y'all go check them out. Let's hear from Tramonte's, and then we're going to jump into the 2023 schedule.
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and homegating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp rolls, kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
And we're also brought to you today by Celebrity Theaters located on the corner of George O'Neill and Jones Creek. Remember, they're doing a watch party every LSU game this year. It is free cover. Come in. They're doing game specials like this, like your Coke and nachos. They have locations across the state, although only the Baton Rouge, the one you see there on the left side of your screen, will be doing the LSU watch party. But y'all still go check them out. Plenty of great specials. They also are doing Oops, graphics missized there. They'll be doing their St. Jude giveaways every Thursday during September. So y'all make sure to go check them out this week. All righty, let's get into it. LSU schedule. So it came out at 6:00 today, and my only way I had to kind of do notes on it, as complex as these things get to break down, is to kind of do it on my Twitter. So I kind of looked at a bunch of the opponents, but off the surface here, what you think, man? Tough schedule, huh?
Yeah, I'm not really too crazy about this. I got to be honest with you. When I first saw Arkansas on September 23rd, week 4, I'm like, oh, wow, something different. And then you get, at Ole Miss and then at Missouri, which should be a home game, but whatever. Auburn and then, Army. I'm looking at that. I'm going, okay. But then I see Alabama and Florida back to back. Then I look closer at the home and away schedule, and I see the fact that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 5 weeks for LSU's 2023 season, they only have 2 home games. 2 home games in the first 5 weeks.
That's rough.
So, I I don't think this schedule is favorable. I think I'd rather. I understand Arkansas is in a better place than Florida is right now. I still think Florida's in a rebuilding mode. I think they're about to be humbled as their season goes along this year. They just don't have the depth on line of scrimmage at the moment. But next year, who knows? The Army game.
Let me tell you, I actually love the Army game prepping before the Bama. So you get Army and a bye week going into Bama. Your squad should be fresh. I mean, real fresh for that game. And then Auburn, who, Auburn's probably going to have a new football coach that game. They're probably going to be in rebuilding mode. LSU should have all the opportunities to beat Auburn.
Yeah, I like the first, even though it's away, I do like, Ole Miss is going to be tough with Kiffin nowadays. Missouri, who knows, Missouri may have a new coach at the end of this year, depending on how the second half of their season goes. I would say Army's kind of a double-edged sword because you do get to rest a lot of guys, so you get essentially 2 weeks before Bama, and so that kind of helps out with the Bama-Florida back-to-back thing, but you also get to face, on the flip side, that triple option after facing Ole Miss, Missouri, and Auburn for 3 straight weeks.
Which is kind of like preparing for a Mississippi State air raid offense. In 3 days, you have to try to get your defense ready to cover an entirely different offense that doesn't really apply to any other offense you play. I'm going to tell you this. So I know that every single year, this is kind of the thing where you go on the road for these neutral site, decent games. I don't like it that you open up like that. I prefer easy games to open the year to get those kinks out to figure out if Malik Neighbors is going to muff the punt twice when he's back there returning.
Right.
Because those are just kinks you can work out in an opener. But of course, we're going to Orlando week 1. At least Florida State doesn't have a warm-up game when LSU doesn't. I think after watching that game, that was a lot more helpful than it appeared at first. Obviously, then following up with Grambling is very helpful at home because you're going to have a decently tough stretch of kind of like your tier, you got your top tier SEC teams you're scared to face, and then you've got teams that are a little more manageable. Arkansas is probably a tougher one, but you do get Arkansas at home. They'll be breaking in a new quarterback, almost certainly. Mississippi State, then Arkansas, Ole Miss. I get it. That's a tough little stretch, but that back half, there's one week combo that scares me, and that's Alabama and then Florida at home. That's brutal, man. That is absolutely brutal to have to. And I know you get about as soft a schedule as you can get going into that. You get Missouri, you get Auburn, who we just talked about their problems. You get Army. Your players should be fresh and prepared, but that's a brutal back-to-back weeks, man.
One thing I will say, though, is that we don't, like with Les Miles, the Alabama game the next week, it was always a come down. Like the team just not play hard, regardless of who it was. Usually probably Arkansas.
Right.
Ed Ogeron, he never had that problem. They always were able to show up the next week after the Alabama game. With Brian Kelly, we don't know necessarily. I'm sure we can ask probably Notre Dame people of how they handled, losses or wins after a big game against a nationally ranked opponent or a rival. But, we don't really know for sure how Brian Kelly handles those types of situations. My guess, based on how he likes to keep his players fresh and he likes to use, new age science and, conditioning his players and protecting his players in practice, my guess is that they'll be fresh. And emotionally, they're not an emotional team. They're a very business-like team. So I think that gives me hope that they can handle that situation, that it's not going to be a Les Miles. But at the same time, even though Florida is still in a rebuilding stage, it's still Florida.
Right. Hey, Jerry Zimmerman just put a comment up there. I'm going to put it up in a second because that's a great segue into what I had coming up here. But I don't know, man. Any way you slice and dice it, you go into Tuscaloosa, you're going to have some beat up guys. I don't think there's any amount of strength and conditioning or recovery that'll get your guys truly ready to go in 7 days. Now, the good news is coming off of that, you've got Georgia State coming in, who gives you a good, cupcake to get your, warm your legs up, get you back up some reps before you play Texas A&M at Baton Rouge. I'll tell you this, Missouri is a draw from the East. Look, guys, a lot of people look at this schedule. Like you said, it's a daunting, tough schedule, but I mean, that's every year for LSU. I can't remember the last time I saw a schedule for LSU and I said, this is manageable. This is easy. It's always ridiculously tough.
Well, maybe 2019, because you had the open up easy one with Georgia Southern, and then you went to Texas, and then you got banged up a little bit in Texas, but then you had a month where you played.
Yeah, but dude, I mean, they played 7 top 10 teams that year. I mean,
you just, you coasted until the Florida game or whatever.
Yeah, but even so, man, you still added Texas to the schedule that included Florida and Bama and Auburn. I mean, that was a daunting schedule. It's inherently playing in the SEC West every year is going to be daunting. So what I try to dig into is not necessarily how many tough teams are on there. Because you're going to have 5 or 6 very losable games no matter what. It's the flow of things. How does your team, are there trap games? Are there team stretches where your team's just going to be beat down? And then on the other side of that, what I try to do is look at opponents, what they're bringing in. Let's see here. So here's that comment he had. Just so you know, other teams, fans look at their schedule and say, oh crap, we got to play LSU. And that's if LSU's good or bad, by the way. Because regardless, LSU's going to be bringing that talent, and it's a team that's going to be tough to play no matter what. So I like I said, I only had time to do the notes on Twitter because it was like right before the show here. So I'm going to go down the Twitter feed here and look at a few things. Ole Miss, they're playing Georgia Tech, Alabama, LSU, Arkansas. Now that is a stretch that is going to be brutal on Ole Miss. You can agree. LSU probably doesn't have a 3-game stretch that rough, right?
No, I'd say probably their toughest 3-game stretch is Mississippi State, Arkansas, and then at Ole Miss.
And I agree.
As far as 3 games is concerned. 2 games, it's obviously Bama, Florida, but 3
Bama,
games,
Florida, right. No doubt.
Arkansas and Ole Miss, and 2 of those are on the road.
No doubt. I just think that the first half of it's the tough, but not like clobber schnocker games. Okay. Florida and Bama, those are going to be tough games. Those are going to be physical. There's going to be a ton of athletes on the field. All respect to, all those teams early on in the schedule. Ain't none of them Bama, Florida. Okay. They just aren't. This is a game. I look at Ole Miss coming into that game and I'm like, man, Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, which is no slouch, by the way. I mean, you have to play them legit and do special prep for them. Then Bama. Now I think they'll be really well prepared for the Bama game, but to Bama, to LSU, that's really brutal for Ole Miss. Moving on to Texas A&M. Yeah, they get a cupcake leading up just like LSU does. Just like LSU. LSU will be playing Florida. They'll be playing Mississippi State, then Abilene Christian. I think that matchup is going to be very evenly matched. We're looking at Florida. Look at what Florida brings in coming into that LSU game, man. They're bringing no bye week, by the way. This is October 28th. We're doing Georgia, right? And that's in Jacksonville, Florida, neutral site. Then you're talking about going to, Arkansas goes to Florida, and then LSU goes. Then they go. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. It's Arkansas at home, then at LSU. That's a rough stretch, man.
They don't get a bye week.
No,
LSU
not there. Not in that 3-game stretch.
LSU really gets kind of 2 bye weeks to rest some of their starters against Army, and Florida has to play Georgia, then Arkansas,
right.
Then LSU.
So that's one of the reasons why at first I looked at that. I was like, dude, that is brutal. Until I looked at what Florida's bringing into this, and it's like, dude, Florida's going to be beaten down, man. I mean, South Carolina, who is an SEC team, you get your bye week, and then Georgia, who's going to just clobber the hell out of you. Then Arkansas, then LSU. I mean, Florida's going to be beat up for that football game. So I like LSU probably has a better setup, even though they're coming off of Alabama. I'd much rather take a bye in Bama than Georgia, Arkansas for a big football game. So this is where, when you go to this level of depth of looking at the opponents, you start to see LSU catches actually a few more breaks than you might think. Bama, of course, gets the bye before playing LSU. Of course, that's every single year. But then they play Tennessee, who's no longer a gimme.
No.
They're no longer a gimme game.
Tennessee might give them a run for their money this year. They played the way that it did against Texas.
We'll see, man. Notably that if Bama plays the way they played against Texas, because if Bama takes care of business, I think we all agree that that's not going to be very close. And y'all, I'm starting to notice this is a little bit smaller on my Twitter feed. I might pull it down if I can't, if all the other schedules are as small as this one. But there we go. But yeah, so while Bama is playing Tennessee, and by the way, on the heels of Arkansas, but Tennessee, LSU will be playing Army. So slight advantage to LSU in that department. Here's SEC Mike with an interesting. He said LSU was the number 2 winner, which Mike.
Georgia's schedule is pathetic. The past.
Yeah, I didn't even look at Georgia's yet, but
Georgia's really like this year. And
they got to play Auburn out of the West every year.
Yeah,
because Auburn's
horrible.
Yeah, Auburn's probably going to be terrible next year.
They're probably terrible this year.
No, they are terrible this year. There's no doubt about that. Man, I got Jay Boy coming on my show next week to talk about Auburn. Can't wait to get to him.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was an interesting little, third party. Michael Bratton is a guy, I've done his show before. He does all the SEC teams. He knows what he's talking about. Now, Arkansas is the one I hate what they get coming into the LSU game. Arkansas has the schedule I wish LSU could have every single flipping year. Western Carolina, Kent State, and BYU, who BYU's no slouch. That's a tough team.
Yeah.
I just don't think that BYU is going to give you an SEC beat down. Like you'd be talking, I mean, even LSU on a down year, I feel like you're taking a physical whooping from LSU more than what BYU is going to do. Forgive me if I have any BYU Cougar fans up in the chat who can prove me wrong. That's just my gut, because we really don't know how these teams are going to look anyways next year. But I really don't like that Arkansas gets 3 kind of warm-up games. I mean, and then you get BYU who put it in the second gear, and then they can really get cooking against LSU. That's the one that concerns me.
Yeah, their first half of their schedule looks pretty. I won't say easy, but easier compared to most SEC West teams. Right.
Well, and on the other side of the coin, so they're playing Western Carolina. LSU's got to go to Orlando for Florida State, and then another SEC road game at Starkville, Mississippi. So coming off of that many road games, we saw the effect of Mississippi State playing at Arizona last week, right? Well, I think LSU was just more physically conditioned after having to make that, West Coast trip they did, and then having to make another trip to LSU. Watch out. LSU might be kind of sleepwalking in that Arkansas game. And we know what Sam Pittman and them are doing there at Arkansas. That's the one I look at where I'm like, I don't like the flow of that. The flow advantage is bad for LSU. And then, of course, looking at, Auburn here, who I don't think Auburn's going to compete much, but you got Georgia, then a bye before coming into LSU. So Georgia, a bye. Meanwhile, LSU, that same week, let's see here, Auburn, you're going to be dealing with Ole Miss and Missouri. That's a bit of an advantage. I know Georgia's 2 weeks earlier, but a bye is a bye, right? So getting Auburn off a bye is kind of harmful, but I don't think it's necessarily going to matter. I think Auburn's going to be in such bad shape unless they somehow pull a major coach. I saw some people talking Lane Kiffin, but
Lane Kiffin might actually take that job. He's trying to get out of Oxford because he knows that you can't win a national championship at Ole Miss because they don't have enough money. Auburn's got money.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it's more of a pipe dream. I think he can shoot maybe a little higher than Auburn. I mean, you're still
know,
gonna
man.
be.
People don't want to deal with him. Like, I hear a lot of things how like Kiffin is pissed that he can't get a job outside of Oxford, Mississippi. That that's better than what Ole Miss can offer him. Like he wanted the Miami job, he wanted the Florida job, he wanted the LSU job. Like he's trying to get out of Oxford for a team that's got more resources, and Auburn's one of them. And quite honestly, who else would want to go to Auburn except maybe Lane Kiffin, who was like, I don't care, I'll win anywhere.
I think Lane Kiffin's self-aware enough to know that he has to be a consistent winner. He can't just be a flash in the pan good, because he's been flash in the pan good. It's about building that program consistency. And I understand he didn't really get a fair shot at USC, but if he loses he loses his quarterback and has to reload this year, if he wins 9, 10, 11 games again this year, you don't think some tier 1 program is going to come knocking? Of course they are. Of course they are.
Like, I made the joke the other day to someone, like, Lane Kiffin was birthplace is Lincoln, Nebraska, because his dad was coaching there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's technically a Lincoln, Nebraska native. He lived there.
Interesting.
Like 3 or 4 years old because his dad, Monte,
right,
was a coach there. But
look,
I for Nebraska.
Any of my elder fans in the chat who remember Nebraska being good, all those 95 Nebraska days, Tommy Frazier, all them, Tom, Osborne and company. I will take Ole Miss over Nebraska any day, man. I understand it's in Mississippi, and you got the in-state competition, and you're sandwiched in between, LSU and Bama right there, and then Auburn's right there, and you got to, fight tooth and nail for recruits. But dog, Nebraska's in the middle of a bunch of freaking cornfields, man. Give me Ole Miss all day over Nebraska.
Yeah, well, as far as places I'd live, I mean, I take the warmer weather, but I will say this about Nebraska. Everyone's like, well, is Nebraska even a better job than, Iowa State? Because they're looking at Matt Campbell. And
it's better than Iowa State. Okay,
yeah,
but
better job, because people don't realize how much money Nebraska actually has, that they have a top 10 NIL collective. Like Nebraska, go look at their facilities and their infrastructure. They have the only thing Nebraska doesn't have is in-state recruiting talent. But in other words, they should be way better than what they've been. Like they should be better than Iowa.
Right.
They should be better than Kentucky. They should be better than those programs.
Right, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick moment to give a shout out to sponsor. Nick, are you good to stick on a little bit longer? Just kind of, we'll keep you on, wrap up the show, man. I want to thank Dead Soxy for making our show possible again. Remember, they have their Mardi Gras collection that they just released this year, y'all. Very comfortable, very fun dress socks, y'all. Of course, they have all their classic LSU colors we talk about a bunch on the show. Their black and gold collection. So whatever your Louisiana interest is, they've got you taken care of. If you're looking for a good pair of footies, they got you taken care of with their good, comfy cotton socks here. So y'all go check them out. Dead Soxy is, of course, excited for football season, just like you are. Go check out their website, deadsoxy.com. Fill out the form when the pop-up comes up on your screen, and by signing up, you'll sign up for alerts when new styles drop, and you'll receive information about exclusive promos. Now, of course, I just talked with them today, and they do have some new styles dropping soon, like next couple weeks. Not right now, but we'll see. Don't forget to visit their team colorways page. And of course, guys, with any promotion you do, promo code TigerBait will always get you 25% off. But if there's another promo going on, like, holiday 30 and it's 30% off, if you put in TigerBait, you're still going to get that 30%. And you're telling them that TigerBait sponsorship is working. It's supporting our show. They track all that. They track our promo code. So y'all, please go out and get your LSU socks at Dead Soxy this football season. All right. So overall schedule thoughts for me, just to kind of summarize here, is it's a rough schedule next year, but not one like 2013 where I said, damn it, LSU got screwed. I mean, Missouri is a good draw out of the East.
Yeah.
Florida State is obviously improving, but at the same time, they're not like this daunting week 1 team that you're not going to want to face. And I think the flow, especially when compared to the flows that other SEC teams, is manageable. It is a tough schedule, but every year is tough. So I tend to think LSU is a bit of a winner based on what I'm seeing. I think the one exception is that Arkansas game where Arkansas has a landslide of an advantage. What's your thoughts overall?
Yeah, I mean, see, before we got onto this, I was just looking at LSU schedule. I wasn't looking at, the other schedules and other teams, what they have to face the week before, the week after, and stuff like that. But once you do a deeper dive, you realize, oh, wait, it's just another SEC schedule for LSU, and they can still manage that schedule if they play to their potential.
Right. And look, man, I barely had time to look at those schedules. Like, that's why I'm on Twitter, like pulling things up. I'm like, all right, let's see, because I didn't have any time to do anything else. I mean, it dropped at like 6:45, and this show's live at 8. Let's get some comments here. Let's see here. Zimmerman just wants that Florida State matchup to restore order. Who was that Bama lineman who did that in 2012? Who said that? The center said that. When LSU, they won in the rematch, order has been restored.
Oh, well, yeah, I forget.
It was like Landon Dickerson before Landon Dickerson.
Look, I still don't think Mike Norvell might have saved his job because he's gotten off to a good start. And he'll probably win 7 or 8 games in the year. But
yeah, he's
still not a good coach. Like, I watched that Florida State game, and like he's just making dumb mistakes, and I still don't think he's going to last there very long. Yeah,
I look at the comparison we made. I was like, yeah, I think they win about 8 games or so this year. They're not a bad team. Well, then Mike Scarborough asked me the question, okay, well, where do you think they'd rank in the SEC East? And then you start to realize that's an ACC 8-win team.
Exactly.
I had them like 6th in the East. Like, are they better than Kentucky? No. Are they better than Florida? No. Are they better than Tennessee? No. Well, and look, when the question was asked, Florida was looking good beating.
Oh, right. Right.
Florida's kind of fell off a little bit, but
yeah,
I still think it'll be a fun game between them. Let's put it like that. It'll be a fun game at this point.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game, but I will say this: Anthony Richardson, he has got some passing issues. Like, I will like Jaden Daniels has some things to work on, but no, Jaden Daniels is a fine passer compared to what Anthony Richardson is going through right now. Another thing is that Florida's defensive front is soft as cotton.
Yeah. And I agree. And understand, Florida has a bit of a rebuilding this year in front of them. I mean, yes, Napier's done an awesome job rebuilding that team, but we saw against USF, they got some problems. So maybe LSU stock up. Mason Smith tweeted the schedule saying revenge tour. Man, it is so upsetting thinking about Mason Smith getting hurt on the very first drive. He looked like he was about to have an All-American season.
Can you imagine that defensive performance if he was healthy?
Well, I was talking to people about Mississippi State where it just makes me cringe thinking about his long arms batting down those short passes State likes to do. He would have had a whale of a day.
Yeah. You know what else I wanted to bring up about Mississippi State is that was some vintage mid-2000s LSU defensive performance in Tiger Stadium that night. And it's been a while since we've seen that, and it was good to have it back. But more importantly, that was a DBU vintage performance. That
no doubt.
Past few years. And of all the things we talked about this offseason, we talked about how this is the weakest secondary and cornerback room that LSU has had in 20 years. And yet this is the first time in 3 or 4 years that we've seen a vintage DBU LSU performance from that group.
Yeah, I concur with that, because limiting a guy like Will Rogers to 214 yards on 42 passes, by the way, not to mention your DBs were playing up to the line of scrimmage like some dogs, man. I mean, Jay Ward all over the field, man. I cannot tell.
Not even back yet.
Yeah. So a lot of good positive things going for this team. Not to mention Fouché. Fouché will be back, not this game, but next. He'll be back for the Auburn game. Yeah, Auburn game. So that's a guy who was like starter, like a legit starter for Arkansas. I mean, yeah, stocks up. Yeah, no doubt. 95 team was a beast for Nebraska. Nick, how old were you in 95?
Oh boy, I was 1 in 95.
Okay, how old were those recruits in 95?
They probably weren't like which
No,
recruit?
they weren't even the recruits that Nebraska is trying to recruit to play football for.
Oh, they weren't even born.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I don't care. I don't care. The players weren't even born. Their parents were probably going on their first date. I don't care if they've even met. I mean, come on, y'all. Let's see here. What about giving to Nebraska? That's my thought. Here's my thought. Who wants to be a Cornhusker? I mean, I'm sorry, but like it's like a tier 3 job. Tier 3. I don't buy it, man. It's just too many challenges to overcome. There's a reason why Nebraska hasn't been elite in a very long time. Here's a comment about Brandon Reese. Reese Davis was on SEC Network talking to Peter Burns about SEC scheduling, and he said if it was up to him, the SEC would play 10 conference games similar to 2022 less cupcake games. I think it sounds great, but let's be real. SEC ain't doing it. Everybody else is.
I don't know if you read that piece earlier this summer by Ross Dellinger about how essentially it was the haves and the have-nots in the SEC. Like, so the top 7 in the SEC, the LSUs, the Bamas, the Georgias, the Auburns, the A&Ms, the Floridas, and what have you. They were like 4, the top 7 of the SEC, the power brokers, were 4 playing 9 to 10 conference games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, we get more money. It's awesome. And, you know, we can win national championships, where the bottom half of the SEC, the Missouris, the Vanderbilts, the Mississippi schools, even Arkansas, or South Carolina were not in favor of it because that means one less win, gimme cupcake game.
Right.
But, you know, I think it's sort of a tug of war right now between who's going to win. But in my experience, and you can agree with this, history shows money usually wins out.
Well, and let me throw another angle at you here. One of the big problems with college football is that we don't have enough quality non-conference scheduling. Like we get the LSU Bama matchup every year, but what about LSU USC? Like, yes, I know that's on the schedule in a few years, but it takes so long. You get one of those per team per year if they freaking feel like it. Sometimes Alabama says Duke is good enough for us this year. You know, and like you just don't get a quality non-conference game. And I think not only that, like the home and homes is what I want. Like I'm tired of LSU's going to Disney World to play Florida State. Dude, I want to see LSU in the Coliseum. I want to see, you know, LSU going to, Ohio State to play the Buckeyes, man. Go to the Orange Bowl and play Miami in front of 20 fans. You know what I mean? Like, give me some quality. And that's where a 10-game schedule, it's out the window.
Well,
you're not doing it at all.
Yeah, one thing I will say, though, is that it appears that although the cupcake games may not be going away anytime soon until conference realignment, expands and makes more conference games, those aren't necessarily going away because they're just too easy to give up, or too hard to give up, I should say. But one thing that is going away in future scheduling is the neutral sites. They're bringing back the home and home because college games should be played on college campuses. That's part of the charm of the sport.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another cool thing is with the college playoff being expanded is you're going to get the first couple rounds are going to be on campuses, which is awesome in my opinion, because that means you're going to get LSU going to the shoe. You're going to get, teams like, I don't know, USC coming to Bama, not playing in the Chick-fil-A, whatever, Mocha Choca bullshit. No, you're going to get good quality games on the road in these environments. It's going to be bonkers, man. And I'm about it. All right. You know what isn't bonkers, y'all, is the meats at Tramonte Specialty Meats and Seafood, y'all. Great whiskey selection. Their tailgating and homegating headquarters. Daily lunch specials, y'all. Their deli right there behind Parkview Baptist on Jefferson and Airline Highway. One of the best delis. I love going and picking up their burger, which is just ground ribeyes. They've got 30 kinds of meat and sausage. The kind of stuff you'll impress your friends and family with for your tailgating for the games, y'all. Fresh meats, sausages cut daily. Y'all go check them out. Again, if you're a hunter, they're doing wild game processing during hunting season. So let's run their commercial, and then we'll come back to wrap up the show.
Tramonte's has meat. Tramonte's has seafood. Tramonte's has much more. Tailgating and homegating platters. Huge wine and liquor selection. Beer and all the spices you need. Chairman Reserve and Wagyu meats. Ribeye rolls, shrimp roll kebabs. 20 flavors of sausage for the grill. Daily lunch specials and game processing. On-site catering also available. Good meat ain't cheap and cheap meat ain't good. Visit Tramontes.com.
Thank you, Tramontes. Being a Louisiana native with the family there, I could tell you one thing. Lincoln, Nebraska had going was O Street. You know what O Street means? I don't catch that reference.
Probably some downtown hotspot or whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, congratulations, Nebraska. You got O-Town. 2024 kickoff LSU USC in Vegas. Again, I get it. Vegas, cool, fun. I've been to Vegas. I can't wait. But I'd much rather go to the Coliseum, man, and play in an atmosphere like that. And I'd much rather see USC come to LSU. Like, there's just something special about college campuses, y'all.
We're ready for UCLA coming to LSU, though, in 2024.
Yeah, right. And I like this was saying, there's some of it I just want more. And it'd be nice if maybe with the stakes lowering, because 16 teams will be in the playoffs, maybe we'll see teams vying for stronger strength of schedule and less about having a perfect undefeated schedule.
That's one of the biggest arguments for expanding the playoffs. It's just the
right
product on the field.
Right. I do think that, however, you're going to lose that special, like, we have to beat Bama. We have to win every game, because if we don't, championships out of the table. But I think we kind of already lost a little bit of that, when we did the 4-team playoff, because it was a little bit more room for forgiveness. But this really, you're going to be seeing some 3-loss teams in there. And that's just a little, you still want to fight for seeding, but the fact that it's championship or bust, you do lose that. But at the flip side of that is that throughout the end of the regular season, teams with 3 losses are still fighting for something. So
and
there's
really,
a lot of.
Well, one thing that I said is that I agreed with you at first when you said 8's perfect, but I actually heard the argument why 12 is actually perfect, because it gives the top teams an incentive to keep playing at the end of the season as opposed to just resting their starters, which is what the NFL had a problem with for the last few years.
Right.
Gives them that you get a bye week if you keep playing hard.
Right, exactly. So I think 16 was too many, in my opinion. I would have been fine with 12. I would have been fine with 8. 8 probably would have done the trick, in my opinion, but they probably were looking at it like it takes 10 years to get anything done to change this. So if we think 16 is going to eventually come, let's just do it. I think the problem is no matter what what's that?
It was 12 teams, not 16.
Am I wrong? Is it 12? Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. 12. Duh.
That's all right.
But I thought 8 was the right number. 8. Yeah, you're right. It is 12. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sitting here tripping up because there's a bye week. 16 makes no sense. But yes, I thought 12 was too many. 8 would have done the trick, because you get your 5 conference champions, right? Then you get your 1 group of 5, right? And then you get 2 at larges. I think having, was that 6 at larges? Man, that's a lot. That's a lot of teams.
You know what it is, though, is that it's 12. I know the NFL now has 14. They expanded recently, but college football is like, hey, we're this close to the NFL. They're never going to catch them, but that's essentially the model that they're going for. And I think it's still an improvement.
Yeah, I get it. And also worth noting, that's about how many teams you used to have in the BCS. You have, 6 BCS bowls, because you had your 5 plus the championship. So 12 roughly just replaces the BCS, or New Year 6, as you might call it. So I definitely think those New Year 6 bowls have they are not nearly the same pizzazz as the BCS bowls used to be. So it does correct a lot of things. I just think LSU, the college football, since the 4-team playoff had come out, it has just lost its it's mustard for that postseason,
Well,
man. I
they're
mean,
relevant.
you know, it's like because it was everybody just plays one game. You know what? If you were in a BCS bowl, like the Sugar Bowl was a big deal in 06. I remember that. Jamarcus Russell and company going to that game. The Fiesta Bowl in 2018 didn't have the same feel. It just didn't, period. It just felt less important because you weren't in the playoff. So you're not part of that discussion. And 4 teams, there's 3 championship type games, not one. Yeah, does that make any sense? So anyways, Nick, I appreciate you coming on and talking all your stuff, man. Why don't you tell the good people here where they can go check out your content at?
Yeah, so they can go check out. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm on at the Nick Diaz, spelled with an S, right below, like it says, at the Nick Diaz, and on Instagram, same thing. I post some clips on there as well. But you can find all my main stuff on my YouTube channel. It's just the channel is my name, Nick Diaz, and the name of my show is Out of My League. I post, about 2 episodes a day, give or take. I'm going to have some interviews later this week with T-Bob Hebert and Charles Hannegriff. And it's, try to do my short little videos, 12 to 15 minutes each, give or take, and do a little bit of Saints talk as well.
All right. Appreciate you coming on. Always nice to support a fellow man shipper here. Take it easy, man.
All right. Absolutely, man. Take care.
That was Nick Diaz. I appreciate him stepping in this show. I appreciate all of y'all for watching. Hey, guys, I told y'all at the very beginning of the show, but we didn't have quite as many people watching at the time. New internet setup. I got pissed off after the post-game show. I heard myself sounding like a robot. All my good points, anytime I had any burst of words, I was like, so I went anti-millennial on this thing. I got my Wi-Fi router, and I literally had to go in my attic, rework everything, get my router in my studio room here, and hardwire it. I'm using an Ethernet cable. So if you heard any internetual breakups here, whatever the freaking terminology is for lagging or whatever you might call it, let me know in the comments, because yeah, if y'all watch Blake Ruffino's show, he goes after Spectrum. I don't think Cox is much better. I hate internet companies. So I got pretty fiery about that. By the way, shout out to my friend Blake Ruffino, y'all. Blake's father's house burned down last night in a pretty rough situation. If y'all can go support out AYS Sports, Blake Ruffino, all of them. It's a rough time. And, talking to Blake, he's a good friend of mine. He has to be the man right now. Like the man for his family in a lot of ways. I empathize with that situation. So you can give him any support during this time, even if it's just tweeting at him, send him a message, whatever. I'm sure he would appreciate that. And I certainly appreciate all of y'all watching tonight. Mike Scarborough goes live with Buddy Sunji tomorrow night, Wednesday, for his show. We got our post-game show. Hopefully I'll be back in person with Mike. So I'll be over this sickness, and we'll be at the game for New Mexico, and we'll be doing our ride from the car. So y'all make sure to hit that bell. Plenty of good recruiting footage we've got on the site now. So y'all make sure to go check out TigerBait.com and get subscribed if you aren't already. Remember to hit the annual option for $99. That's always the way to go. Thank y'all. Have a great night.